Aloha, this is Joshua Bowles with Lyric Woodwork and Snake Road Sawmill, and today is the newest episode of the Woods of the Pacific. Today's episode is about Monkeypod. Monkeypod is what we use for about 90% of the furniture that we build here in the shop. It's kind of the Goldilocks of woods. Not too hard, not too soft. It's dense enough you can do joinery, but also fairly easy to sand and work with. And it has an incredible amount of character, very much depending on where it grows on the island and the age of the tree. Some of the woods that we get might be from Kailua, and if it's from a branch or from a newer part of the tree, it's really light in color, like this. But the older trees, especially from Waianae side, will be almost black in parts. The Monkeypod grows in many places in the world, a lot in South America. But I feel like the Monkeypod that grows here on the island has a special richness of grain and color that you don't find in a lot of the other Monkeypods. So you can see with Monkeypod, you have the darker heartwood and then this lighter colored sapwood. And it's always a challenge to know exactly what to do with the sapwood. I would say from a design perspective or aesthetic, that I like to just have the sapwood as an accent. There's also, the sapwood is softer, and so there's these tiny little powder post beetles that can get into it that don't get to the heartwood. So often we will trim off the majority of that sapwood and just leave just a hint of it. And a little tip is that if you do ever see little bugs or beetles or a pile of sawdust underneath your table, you can take some turpentine and just pour turpentine on it, and that'll kill those suckers. These are some logs that we recently got from a big tree that was growing up in Manoa Valley. And with these, we will always paint the ends first to prevent cracking and splitting. In this case, it was a homeowner who regrettably had to cut down this huge Monkeypod as it was getting too close to the house. So we're going to give it a second life. And so what we do in that case is we put the client's initials on them, and then we'll begin the design process while we still have the logs in this form, so we know exactly how thick we should mill them. So yeah, these were just recently cut down, so there's still some signs of life. As you can see, the Monkeypod has this little pink flower, and it has a seed pod that is edible. One of the great advantages of Monkeypod is the size that these trees grow to. These trees can grow to 10 foot in diameter. One of the biggest ones I've seen is up Waimea Valley. There's a little creek with a huge monster Monkeypod growing off of it. This one was grown in Waimanalo, and this is going to become a dining room table for a client. As you can see, we get to make a dining table for 8 to 10 people out of one solid chunk of wood. This one's interesting in that it's got this bark inclusion where two branches are coming together. And then here we can see at some point this branch snapped off and then the tree grew around it, and that gives it that feature. Here's an example of a Monkeypod table we're making for a client. And what I was saying earlier about just leaving a bit of the sapwood as an accent color, that's what you can see in this one. This is one we're making for a crouching lion. And typically, we always cut along the long way of a log. We rarely do a cross cut, basically because that cross cut tends to be a bit more brittle, so they can snap easily because you don't have that continuous grain. But in this case, this was a tree that was removed from behind the client's house, and the crane operator felt nervous about moving this 10,000-pound log over the house. So they cut it into smaller sections. What that meant is we were able to get these cross-cut sections. One of the qualities that makes Monkeypod so pleasant to work with is how stable it is. We can just lean these pieces up and they will stay flat. Back in Texas, where I'm from, if you leave a board like that, that thing is gonna bow in 2 seconds. This was the very base of a really old tree. The reason for that stability, I believe, is here, if you look at a cross section of it, as you can see, there's no growth rings. Basically, it's always summer in Hawaii. So there's a uniform density. It grows continuously throughout the year. So then when you mill it, it retains its original shape. Imagine you have like a conifer from the mainland where you have those growth rings, where you count the age of the tree, and you have a dense line and then soft, dense, soft. Imagine then you cut that, and of course it makes sense that board is going to change shape. So that's one of the things that makes Monkeypod such a pleasure to work with and to make stuff out of. One of the great things about having our own sawmill for our furniture studio is that we have hundreds of pieces to choose from. So when a client approaches us and they have a very particular idea, say for a desk, I keep a running inventory in my mind and know each piece intimately, and so I can say that'll be a perfect fit for your project. If you have a project in mind, desk, table, surfboard, let us know. If you're in the area or you're visiting the island, please pay us a visit and please subscribe to our channel.